I'm like 10 to 15 pounds overweight for my height.
I'm like 10 to 15 people overweight.
At the turn of the century, they were making some movies, but we kind of forgot all their names. So we started a podcast, and we know you did not ask. Too bad for you, my early 2000s.
Hello and welcome back to My Early 2000s. I'm your host, Will.
And I'm your other host, Daniel.
And this is your favorite podcast where we go through the loved and lost movies of the early millennia. I said it again.
Whoa, millennia's back.
How are you this week, Daniel?
I'm doing great. How are you, man?
It's fucking cold. Everything's on fire.
Yeah.
It's smoky everywhere in California.
Yeah. If we're coughing, it's because of the fires in California. We are freezing because it's 62 degrees outside, which means that we are cold.
That's what cold is
That's
here.
what cold is
Is
here.
it only 62 degrees outside?
Okay, what does my watch say? 64.
Oh, fuck me.
But our apartment's got to be at least 59.
Yeah, because you just ran...
It's like
well,
3
you just ran the
degrees.
heater, though, for a good 15
I
minutes.
don't want to sound like a little bitch, but
You were all wrapped up in blankets when I got
it's
home.
so cold in here. I don't know what to do.
Well, let's drink this beer that we got then.
Yeah,
How
that
about
might warm us up. What are we drinking today?
This is a Spaten Optimator. It's pretty fantastic, man. I don't know. It's
I haven't
just
tried
like
it yet.
it's a beer milkshake, and I
beer
don't
shake?
mean that in like it tastes like a milkshake. It's creamy. It's good.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
What is this?
it's one of my
Das
favorite.
Germans.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Munich, Germany.
Munich. It's a Doppelbock. Get this. It's since 1397.
Are you just reading the
I'm
label?
reading the label. It says it's since... Do you know how long that is?
I know.
Do you know when Columbus sailed?
Why do you think it tastes so good? They've been working on it that
This
long.
is like 100 years before Columbus. This is pre-America. This is PA. Cheers to that. That's delicious. Go get yourself one of these Spaten Optimators.
What movie are we watching this week, though, Daniel?
That's a great question. We are watching Star Wars Episode 2. Something about clones. God damn it. We are watching...
It's Attack of the Clones.
We are watching Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
There you go. Now you sound like you know what you're talking about.
I know which movie I just watched.
We thought it would be fun to explore this one because we've got The Last Jedi coming out. Disney's been making all the new Star Wars movies. So I kind of wanted to go back and now that we know everything we know about the prequels, now that we know what they are, let's just judge it as a film.
Yeah.
And let's go back and see how it holds up in this universe
Totally.
after everything we know now.
And I think the thing that you had mentioned before is that we've got the second movie coming out next week.
It's very parallel to Empire, Last Jedi, so
Yeah.
Attack of the Clones.
So we're doing number 2.
That's what we had to do.
Yeah, number 2. And that's...
Plus, it's the one I fucking hate the most.
Well... I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, let's get into that. How do you feel about this movie, Daniel?
I really, really hated it. I wanted it to be over from the beginning.
So much so that you didn't remember the title.
I didn't care about the title because it didn't matter.
You wanted it to be over from
I
the beginning?
literally was looking at my watch the whole time. I did not like this movie. And I know I've seen it before. I mean, I loved the original trilogy.
Yeah.
I watched it a lot as a kid. I think it was 1999 when episode 1 came out, somewhere around there.
98, 97, yeah, somewhere around there. 99 maybe.
I loved that movie. It was like right in that time where it was kind of perfect
You loved
for me.
Phantom Menace?
I loved it because I was like 9 years old or 10 years,
Right.
10, maybe 11.
But you haven't seen it since, right?
I saw it like probably 50 times at that age.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen it since I was probably 12 or 13. So I don't know if it's good anymore.
So when this movie came out in 2002, Attack of the Clones,
Yeah.
did you have that same reaction?
You're
You're a little older now,
Yes.
8th grade, high school age. I'm not really sure.
like 7th, 8th grade. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can't, I don't recall seeing it. I'm sure, I know I did because I've seen them all. I've never seen it since until today. So 15 years went by.
I think you know why.
Yeah. I also never saw episode 3 since the day it came out till today. I still haven't. So I've only seen both
Maybe that
of these
one's
movies
next.
once. Yeah, maybe.
We don't need to.
I don't know.
Maybe in a few
I'm kind of
years.
curious actually what's going to happen.
Isn't it strange, knowing that you know Phantom Menace so well, to watch that film and then start this film and go, oh, I actually kind of didn't need Phantom Menace. Why didn't we start the prequels right when he's being trained by Obi-Wan?
Well, what about Amidala? She's in that, right?
Yeah, you could argue that Phantom Menace is just a big exposition movie for Amidala.
Well, and I think, maybe it's also important to say that between the two of us, between Will and Daniel sitting here, I am definitely the lesser of the Star Wars people. I'm kind of the...
Don't fucking out me.
I've seen a Star Wars poster on your wall.
Yeah.
In our living room, you've hung up a picture of that Falcon thing.
Oh my God, Daniel.
It's a I knew it was called the Falcon.
God.
This is who I am. I'm going to do this
man.
probably 10 times because I don't remember all their names.
I know.
Real quick, Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones came out in 2002. It was directed by none other than the OG creator, George Lucas.
Who is a madman. Honestly, it feels like he watched Empire a lot of times and then tried to copy it. But George wrote this one with
Jonathan Hales. He wrote his first kind of big film was The Scorpion King. And then he had done like a lot of adventures of young Indiana Jones kind of stuff. So he was in that kind of universe, and that looks
and that's working for George then if it's young Indiana Jones. So
yes.
they know each other. They've got a rapport.
Exactly.
So, but at the problem, he's probably just a fucking yes man to George at this time.
It sounds like it. George has the story by credit on this, so it's the full story. He says obviously.
But you watch the behind the scenes of these movies, and it looks like he fucking wrote one draft and just was too embarrassed, and then just everyone was too scared of him to change any of his ideas ever.
Well, that's entirely possible. It does feel a little bit in this movie like he went with the first idea he had,
exactly,
knowing nothing and not seeing
none
any
of it
interviews.
Could be changed.
Yeah. So it felt like there wasn't a chance to really look at this as in the bigger picture.
I don't think anyone was able to look at it objectively ever. Not even the actors.
So speaking of actors, this movie's starring Ewan McGregor, Natalie Portman. Hello, Hayden Christensen, and Samuel L. Jackson, as well as many other.
Can we just talk really quick? What the fuck is Samuel L. Jackson doing in this movie?
It's so weird. I laughed out loud.
He's in all of them. He's in all the prequels. But like, what makes Samuel L. Jackson good is putting him in scenarios where he gets to be over the top, yelling, extravagant, ridiculous, and we've given him a role that is a monk, quiet, thoughtful.
Yes.
Contemplating. So he just has nothing to do.
It was very bit part for someone of his renown or whatever.
It just feels like fucking, sure, let's also get those fans in the seats.
I was curious if he has a bigger role in the third movie. No. In the first movie? Is he in the first
Mace Windu is one of the most confusing Jedi characters ever put on screen for me.
Which is
he's there because.
It's kind of interesting, though, that he's in charge of the Jedi Order, because later he's in charge of the Avengers. Whoa. Maybe there's going to be Disney owns both.
Nick Fury versus Darth Vader sounds like a good time, actually.
Actually, it does.
But he has to be Nick Fury. He can't be fucking Mace Windu.
Is that his name? That's his name in the movie. Mace Windu. Got it. Just making sure.
The synopsis is kind of hard to explain. It is. It's a confusing story. There's so much set up at the top of Attack of the Clones that we're just supposed to digest and take at face value because the movie says so, and I kind of don't know what's going on.
Well, I think that's a good point. It's not like you could synopsize this particular movie, but really it's about this particular trilogy.
Right.
What's happening in this movie is the
how
furthering,
it adds to the next trilogy.
Yeah, it's the furthering of Anakin's story, essentially, of what was happening in that world before the world we knew. That's really what it is. I mean, we're trying to save the senator.
So that's your big takeaway, right? That the prequels are Anakin's story, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what they're supposed to be. If you watch the first movie, it's clearly Anakin's story.
Is it? He doesn't come in until fucking like an hour and 15 into the movie.
I haven't seen it in 10 years.
Imagine if you met Luke Skywalker when they met Princess Leia in the detention center, and that's your main character.
Right.
It just is confusing.
It doesn't make any sense.
And there's something kind of parallel to that in this film.
Yeah.
I would argue that the prequel should have been Obi-Wan's story. I think it would have been really interesting to see a young, visualized Jedi that has come into his own but is still young enough to kind of be figuring things out. And he's too young to be teaching someone, but he has to anyway. And the bond of their friendship is a confusing pattern of what's teacher, what's my friend.
Yeah.
And they don't explore that in this film. They don't explore it in any of the films.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the actual relationship is between Anakin and Obi-Wan because it's just, I'm told a few stories and that's it.
It's a lot of what Anakin is saying about Obi-Wan. And really, it's just exposition. That's the thing with this movie, is it feels like almost everything that's said is meant to justify what happens 30 years later.
Exactly.
And it just it really rubs you the wrong way. Now, I can kind of see what you're saying. If it were Obi-Wan's story, if we were to switch that around, make it Obi-Wan the protagonist.
That's what the prequel felt like to me at the beginning of that film. You are introduced to him as a young character, fish out of water, being taught by Qui-Gon Jinn.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know how to do things. But then as soon as like you give him a time to like be interesting and start to learn, you put him on the ship and separate him from the main story. Same thing happens in this film. Anakin and Obi-Wan are friends. They've been working together for the Jedi Council for years. They're very, very good at what they do. So we're told.
Yeah, so we're told.
And for some reason, someone's trying to kill Senator Amidala in this movie. She's got a lot of decoys. They're getting killed instead of her. She's trying anything to not be assassinated. So she calls on her old friends from the Jedi Council. I actually can't remember if they're assigned to her or if she asked specifically for them.
I think they're assigned to her. Because they talk about that at the beginning when Obi-Wan's like, we're going to do what we've been told to do.
That's right. Yeah. And as soon as something goes wrong, we're introduced to an assassination attempt. We see these two boys in action working hard to save their lady. It's a reckless rescue. Jedi are supposed to be like contemplative, all-knowing, and anything but fight. Fight is the very last attempt. Everyone's popping a lightsaber like every 5 fucking seconds in this movie. It's all about fight. It's all about offense. No one's ever been an actual Jedi. It's really weird.
Yeah.
There's a lot of role reversal.
Mm-hmm.
Take the assassination attempt of Padme, for instance. When the robot puts those weird little like gooey bugs in the room, and then Anakin comes in and we're gonna fight him off, and they see the droid outside that just did this terrible thing. It's not Anakin, the reckless kid who doesn't know any better and doesn't listen to what he's told, that jumps out the window because he's in love, because he's dumb. It's Obi-Wan, the thought-provoking, smart teacher that jumps out the window. Why?
It's a good question. It just reminded me of Harry Potter. I don't know. There was a lot of Harry Potter-ish.
Dude, it honestly feels like he read Harry Potter before these movies.
I kind of thought he had this stewing for 30 years before he actually did it.
There were always supposed to be 9 movies. In the 70s or 80s, there's 9 movies.
Yeah.
He did the 3. He's like, actually, I'm done. It's really confusing watching two characters I don't care about do stuff I wouldn't see the character do. And it doesn't make anything that happens in the original trilogy stronger. It confuses me more than it strengthens those backstories.
When the story really kind of seems to be in motion, you know, I hesitate.
That is generous,
I
sir.
really hesitate to say that, but there is a point where you're kind of like, okay, this is the movie. I'm not excited about it, but this is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's the point when Obi-Wan and Anakin split up. Obi-Wan is sent to find who was doing the assassination attempt, trying to find kind of who's behind this plot to kill Senator Amidala, and Anakin is sent to protect Amidala, which is...
He kind of does a terrible job of protecting her. Look at every place they go to. It's just wide open spaces, no protection. Nothing's being... What?
Well... I felt like they were relying a lot on the fact that he knows the Force, like he can understand what's kind of happening nearby.
But every person like doesn't really respect him as a real Jedi. She even like kind of diminishes him in that scene where when they meet the new Queen of Naboo. Mm-hmm. Oh, he's still learning. And then he like tries to talk back and he's like, "Excuse me, you're kind of like walking all over my dick here. What are you doing?"
Yeah. And
no one really respects him for what he is. He's just a figure that is...
I kind of got that because they told me that was the truth.
Yeah.
It did not appear that way, though.
Okay.
Because of what they were saying behind... It just like... It really is frustrating because...
Go for it.
He's a great character in that... No, hold on. He's a great character in that what he becomes, we already know the end. We already know how he dies. We already know that he becomes like this famous villain, you know, like the most famous villain of all time.
The most terrifying dude in the fucking galaxy.
Ever.
Yeah.
And in cinema history, that is the most famous villain. We know where he's going, right? So we're keen to that and we want to see him get there. But then we watch this like sweet, cute kid in episode 1 and we're like, no way, that couldn't happen. But I want to see that transition. I want to
Exactly.
see him go from that sweet kid to this really endearing future Jedi, this guy who's trying to learn everything.
That's my point, man. When we meet him, he's not like likable.
No.
He's already a
He's a
snot-nosed piece
dick,
of shit.
Yeah.
He's like a whiny
He's like,
baby.
I'm the best. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm better than this person. I'm
From
better.
the fucking beginning.
No.
And you're just like, this is before
Right.
he's a piece of shit?
Well, and you're kind of like, for a minute there, I was, because I don't know the chronology of it all. So for a minute, I was like, oh, he's just a teenager acting like a teenager. And then I was like, I'm pretty sure he's in his 20s. That's what they're saying. Because he's like trying to get with
even if he's
the senator.
not, think about the way they talk about this guy, Anakin, the greatest Jedi
Yeah.
that saved the Clone Wars
Yeah.
with Obi-Wan. The two of them were so essential to the rebellion, the Jedi, everyone making it through that time. Can you see this kid really being that important, being a symbol of hope, helping people, thinking selflessly of others?
No, never. And I can't see him becoming the greatest villain of all time. Right now in this film, I can see him becoming a villain.
I
or
can't even see him
at
becoming
the very
Kylo
least,
Ren.
a douchebag.
Yeah.
You know, I can see him becoming that.
Yeah.
But I can't see him being the greatest. We need to see what in this film it needs to spark. So in the first film we've got the kid. This film is one I need to see him like at his charm.
We need to see the relationship between him and Obi-Wan. We need to believe that he could actually fall in love with Padme because he is a charming, fun individual, not just
Exactly.
because
He's like
the
a
plot
brooding
needs
little
it.
crying baby.
Yeah.
No, and that's a good point. And then it makes it devastating that he kills his best friend eventually, or his mentor or whatever. He kills him.
But it's not, because we never see that friendship.
No, he hates him at the beginning of this film. You could see that he kind of respects him, kinda, but he also thinks he's better than him, which I kind of got when he was a teenager.
Yeah.
But I don't think he is a teenager.
Sure, but you could also argue that maybe this was Lucas's film for him to be a teenager, right? And maybe next film is finally he's an adult. He's fully fledged and he's person.
Yes. I can
But he's not that either.
I can argue that, but if that's the case, then his mom can't die till the next film.
Exactly. I mean, we're jumping all over the place.
I
at this
know.
point. But it just you can't get through the synopsis without poking a million holes in everything.
Exactly. Well, and I think the biggest thing, at least that I wanted to talk about in regards to this movie, is Anakin.
Hayden Christensen or Anakin?
Both.
Okay.
I really think it's poorly acted, but I don't think it's entirely his fault. I think that he's playing Darth Vader and he's not playing Anakin as an actor. He knows
He's way too aware of where
he knows he's going to be Darth Vader. He shouldn't know that. He shouldn't want to be that. That makes it devastating when he becomes that. And when he has to decide in the third film, for some reason, that's the only option. That's the only side where he can get what he wants. But the fact that he's telling Amidala, I basically want a dictatorship at 20 years old or however old he is.
Oh, that scene is so unsettling.
It's stupid.
And they laugh it off like it's this cutesy little misunderstanding of the way the world works.
And she sees the reality of it for a second, and then she kind of goes back to that's not real.
yeah.
However,
They're just smiley times for forever.
it's just
It's confusing, man.
it's just a bad moment. I'm sorry. It's exposition for exposition's sake for no point, for no purpose, for no,
look at the scenery too. The scenery is so incredibly manipulative. Look at Naboo, where they go to. We've seen Naboo in the last film, and it's CGI palaces, huge, fucking magnificent, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And in this film, they go to a small, quaint little area. Looks like fucking Venice, Italy. They're in a fucking gondola in a boat, like the most romantic city in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right.
like George Lucas doesn't understand love and just sort of wrote a bunch of cliches because he hoped that it would come across.
and it didn't. In general, and I could really go on about this for a long time. I think that Anakin's character was lacking charm, and that's the biggest flaw in this movie. He had no charm,
But he also
There's
has no growth.
saving grace. That's true, but I would argue that's because they don't want him to be the protagonist of that movie.
Right.
The protagonist is the only character that's supposed to have growth.
But
by
it
the
feels
end.
it feels honestly like they're trying to make him the protagonist.
They're-
It really does feel like Lucas has that in mind. It's not coming across and it's not working for me, but that's how it was written.
Well, let's just ask this question then. I'm not even sure I know the answer. Did any character change in that movie from beginning to end?
I think Padme kind of does. But I would argue that none of those are her choices. It doesn't feel like she makes those choices. Her reasonings for why she can't love him are not real reasons to me. She's a senator. It's wrong. Why?
Well, she knew him as a baby.
Yeah, but she was also kind of a kid in that movie.
Yeah, she was like 13 or 14, right? I guess it makes sense. I kind of forgot she was younger. I'm going to argue that point a little bit, though. When she's in the ship or whatever.
Which ship? You gotta be more specific than that, man.
You know, okay, there's a scene in the movie where R2-D2 comes with a message from Obi-Wan.
Yes.
And then he brings it to Amidala and Anakin.
Yeah.
And they have to like broadcast it essentially to the Jedi Corps.
To the Jedi Council, yeah.
Jedi Council. And after that scene, when they realize that he's in trouble, and Samuel L. Jackson's like, "Don't leave, don't do anything, protect her at all costs," right? And he's like, "No, that's what we're doing. We're just listening this time." And she's like, "Nah, we're going because that's what I say. And you have to protect me, and that's what I'm doing." And so
But what does that have to do with the love story? That's all I was talking about. I didn't mean that she doesn't make any of her own choices at all. I didn't think that she made the choice to fall in love with Anakin. It's not her fault. The script goes against and contradicts her character a lot of the time.
And the script is arguing against itself because it wants her to be the protagonist. She's the first scene of the movie. We care about her first. Not that necessarily means anything, but given the scene in that we see an emotional moment from her at the beginning when her decoy dies, we also are told that she's in trouble right at the start. That's what we're told. Then we see the Jedi.
Do you ever feel like she's in danger, though, Daniel? At any point in the film? Really in danger. After that opening scene and we see the horrific explosion and what happens to that poor decoy, does it ever really feel like anyone's ever in trouble again until they're captured on the Gladiator planet?
A little bit with the little bugs in her room.
But it's so quick. Like, Anakin runs in and kills him so fast. There's just no moment of tension for me. There's just lightsabers everywhere. You know, by the time you get to that Gladiator scene, there's 90 Jedi all fighting with their lightsabers. I don't know about you. To me, visually, that looks so wrong. I think it was a cool concept for fans' sake and fan service, but it goes against everything the Jedi are. And no one ever feels in danger because they always have these invincible swords. The element of danger is completely gone until those swords are taken away from our heroes and they're put in this gladiator setting and they have to fight creatively. We get to see their characters use their brains for the first time in the film.
Yeah.
How they specifically would work against an adversary. And you learn more about those characters in that gladiator scene than you do the entire film. Because he gave them something to do.
I agree. That is a great moment when we're watching Obi-Wan and Anakin and
it's weird. You're 2 hours into the film and you're like, am I having fun all of a sudden?
It was close.
Almost.
It was close.
Almost.
It wasn't quite there, but it was close. I don't consider a Jedi with a lightsaber to be invincible, though.
That's just how this movie sort of portrays it a little bit. It's either implying that Jedis are invincible or disposable, and that there's so many that it kind of just it weakens the mythology, it weakens the message of everything they're trying to be. I just don't understand it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They become weird little superheroes instead of people fighting against violence and wanting peace. What Yoda says the Force is, and what they portray it to be in these prequels are very, very different.
Okay.
It seems like a superhero pump-up machine in these movies, and in the others, it's enlightenment.
Well, can we just talk about Yoda for 1 second?
Yeah, let's talk about Yoda.
I have just a question about Yoda.
Mm-hmm.
Yoda seems like a smart dude, right? He's intelligent.
Yeah,
he's one of the...
He's all-knowing.
Yeah, all-knowing. Because he's all-knowing, I just don't understand why he can't speak English correctly.
Oh, fuck
why
you.
Can't
That's
you
just a weird character.
Why can't
That's
you
a weird
figure that
character
out?
tick,
It just
though.
doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it feels
I know
like
I'm going to get some hate for that.
No, I don't think so, because I think it's more like a sensei thing. He's so enlightened that language literally has no beginnings and ends. That it's just sort of everything is interflowing. I'm just fucking bullshitting, to be honest. But that's what it feels like to me.
I could buy it.
You could give a fuck. And that's why it's so weird to see this Yoda in this film. Because he's not all-knowing. He's mostly confused.
Yeah.
He never knows what's going on. And finally, at the end, when he does realize what's going on, he does the exact opposite of what Yoda would do. With Count Dooku, when him and Count Dooku face off, and did that not confuse you to see Yoda pull out a lightsaber?
It didn't confuse me because the only reason I don't know, and I don't even remember, like, it's been a while since I've even seen the original trilogy.
Come on, dude. He's an old man.
Yeah, but they say that he's the greatest Jedi on the planet. They say that in this movie.
That being a great Jedi is not learning how to use a laser sword really well.
That makes sense.
To be a great warrior and to be a great Jedi is different.
I didn't know that. I always thought Jedis were that's like the tool of the Jedi to me.
And I don't know that it is. It's a tool of the Jedi for human Jedi. Yoda in the original trilogy never has a lightsaber, never has any weapon of any kind.
But he's also a lot older then. Even older.
So he doesn't need to protect himself?
I don't know. He always he's like on another planet kind of in safety, right?
He's in exile, but if anyone ever finds him, wouldn't he be in trouble?
I suppose, yeah, but he would know they were coming.
Then wouldn't he know what to do than just fight with a sword? I don't know. The lightsaber scene rubs me the wrong way. He spends Empire teaching Luke about how size does not matter. It's never really explained how much time is gone, if it's days, weeks, while he's training on Dagobah. But he gives him that lesson of trying to pull his X-Wing out of the swamp, using the Force. And Luke tries really, really hard, and he can't.
Yeah.
He falls to the ground. He's exhausted. I can't. It's too big. Yoda says, size matters not. Look at me. And does almost nothing and lifts the fucking thing out, cool as a fucking cucumber. And then you put him in a scene where there's a bad guy that's just like sort of, we should fight because we should fight. He pulls out a lightsaber sword and starts bouncing around, compensating for his fucking height.
The only thing I'm going to say is this, because I was a little upset that he didn't go like full fucking Yoda on him. I was upset.
Exactly. He never does the thing that you expect Yoda to do.
The thing that he does do, and I think this is, he's propelled to fight. He doesn't choose to fight. What he does is the guy throws like a thing on the wall at him, and he doesn't throw it back. He just puts it down.
Exactly. And he should have always had that mentality the entire time. He should beat him with the other character's hate. He should let that dude's over-the-top emotion get the better of him while he's fucking cool. And he doesn't allow the hate to overwhelm him and the frustration to overwhelm him. That's what he does. He puts on this fucking stank face, pulls out his lightsaber, and starts bouncing around the room like a fucking bouncy ball.
What is he supposed to do as a Jedi when the guy says, we're too good for that? Like, we have to do swordplay now, essentially.
I disagree with that line. I think. And I think that's probably...
But wouldn't that would be what his character would do? Would you not agree with that?
It's a dick-swinging
Dooku.
Dooku would do that shit.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yoda
saying.
Would never give him the benefit of the doubt.
So what would Yoda do? That's my question. Dooku says clearly we're the same, so let's lightsaber.
He should be fucking Jackie Chan up against like 80 dudes, where Jackie Chan has like a tablecloth against 70 people and uses that tablecloth to all disarm them. Because that's what he is. He's a disarmer, not a fighter.
I would just be curious to see him defend that point. I was a little bit disappointed that he let the guy get away without fucking murdering him.
Anakin would do that. Anakin would murder. It's just confusing, and that's why we could talk about it forever, because none of it really makes sense in the world that we know, and we're trying to justify it.
Yeah, well, and that is true. And maybe that's just the fault of essentially the only one to blame would be Lucas for not clarifying the universe.
There's just no element of fish out of water in this film. And that's what's so great about the original trilogy. Luke is just a farm boy. He doesn't know anything other than just like rumors and things. Like his friends have all gone off to join the rebellion. He might have joined the Empire if he had gone to school. Like he just doesn't really know where he sits until he's put in that situation and given those morals and given that dilemma to choose. Everyone in this film is no longer a fish out of water. They all know the way the world works, the way the Jedi Council works. The clones, we haven't even really touched on the clones, but that's a whole fucking confusing mess. No one's ever confused. They're just, okay, you're right. You've told me that information and now I know it.
Right.
So we as the audience are now the fish out of water, the entire movie going, what? What? What is that?
Right.
Who's that? Why do I care? What's that dart? Who's that fucking dude in the 50s bar? Are they referencing the 50s and the past, the future? What's happening?
No, yeah, that's actually a really good point you make, because there isn't that quality to the movie. There isn't a person who's learning anything, really. They pretend like Anakin is, but he's not.
And Obi-Wan's kind of with learning everything about the clones. Like, he was going to find a bounty hunter, but ends up finding these clones.
Right.
But that's not really interesting to me because I didn't know those were coming.
Yeah, right.
Also, as a kid, I just kind of assumed stormtroopers were just people and you could interchange them out of those costumes. So now that they're clones, it's confusing to me. And I guess they're not anymore by the time you get to First Order with Finn in the new trilogies, but they're all the same looking guy.
Yeah, I don't think I really thought about that I thought that was the case. They were just people in costumes.
When you heard of the Clone Wars, they even mention it in A New Hope, like when Obi-Wan's sort of like reflecting back on, because it's the only time you really get to know Obi-Wan and talk about the old days.
Yeah.
Any other time you see him from that point on, he's dead and he's a vision and he's exposition and momentum on Luke's life. But in that moment, you get to see him reflect on that relationship.
Yeah.
He was a good friend. Clone Wars, and I envisioned this grand, extravagant something. I never would have anticipated that the clones were the good guys, because they're not, but they're on the side of the Jedi in this story, technically. The Jedi have been secretly building this army for decades.
Right. I guess I'm getting them confused with the droids.
The droids are the
things that they're fighting in that
the
arena.
droids are the Federation.
What are the things that they're fighting that like C-3PO's head gets put on? What is that thing?
That's the Federation army, and that's who Count Dooku is secretly working with now. He's got the Viceroy people from Phantom Menace. It's their droid army, I believe.
Okay.
Because we've seen it in Phantom Menace.
So those aren't the
It's their
clones.
technology. No.
Got it. Okay.
The clones are
Honestly,
being made by... I know, it doesn't...
That was
it
really
just,
lost on me.
You know what it is?
Uh-huh.
Here's why you're so confused. We're thrown into that arena, and we're seeing our three heroes fighting gladiator style, and it's like, great. They are learning, they are fighting, and they're just trying... Oh, okay, everyone's got lightsabers again. There's a million lightsabers. What is happening? Who are all these characters? And then just like clones show up. And now it's no longer our characters fighting against bad guys. It's CGI clones fighting against CGI robots. And you, Daniel Wargo, don't know anything about either side. So much so that you don't know who the good guy is. You don't know who the good and the bad people are.
I guess not.
Yeah.
I mean, I know on
I know you
on
just
the
watched this movie and you saw the
battlefield-
clones take the Jedi and Padme all to that hangar with Dooku at the end.
Yeah, I guess I kind of forgot they were the clones. I kind of thought the droid-looking guys were the clones. I thought the clones were being made by Django.
But that's a whole different
I thought
thing.
he was a bad guy.
Yeah. See,
But
it's
he's
just a
making them
mess.
for the good guys?
Also, Django, Boba Fett. Oh my God, it's just like it's confusing for the sake of like here's a Boba Fett, but not really.
It's also confusing that Boba Fett has a really strong British accent and his dad
It's Australian.
doesn't. Whatever.
It's supposed
I don't need them to have the
he's
same
a kid
accent.
actor, and
Yeah.
let's be honest, in all of these films, none of the kid actors are good. There's so many kids in this whole movie. Do you remember that scene where Yoda's like teaching all the like?
Yeah.
When you thought about the original trilogy and how important it was to work with Yoda and how he took on one apprentice at a time and all these things, did you ever imagine he was teaching a preschool?
Yeah, I didn't think about
It just feels
that.
like all the first ideas Lucas came up with. Just like, that's fine.
Yeah.
I think these films just go so far, and that's why you get Force Awakens the way that it is. A lot of people complain about Force Awakens because it's essentially A New Hope.
It was very
remade.
similar.
It's so similar.
Yeah.
I really do like it, but you can see now, rewatching this film and rewatching just all these prequels, that Lucasfilm was pigeonholed into I think they just had to reassure us all, this is a Star Wars movie. Like, it feels close to the other films, but instead of relying on what the original trilogy did, it uses that as a launching point to tell its own story.
All right, well, let's get into some questions.
Let's do it.
I know we could talk about this movie for a
Yeah, I'm
a
actually
lot.
kind of glad you cut me off.
We could really get into
We're
it.
looking at it reflectively and not first
Right.
for face value.
And also, I think, it's we've this is our 5th episode. This one's hard because like if we just disliked another film, we could still find some funny moments, whatever. But because this is so much at stake in that there's all these, there's always these stories that we know and love, and it's just such a big world, and it's a big part of our world, that it's harder to be positive when there's so much that could be better, that could be right.
Having said that, though, I did find myself getting a little bit of nostalgia from childhood watching this film. I think on accident, some of it's part of my childhood, some of my beginning. Like, I liked Star Wars so much as a kid that I did see all these movies. I wanted to like them, even though I didn't. And I think I kept justifying every one.
Yeah.
So there was
there was like an element of Star Wars can do no wrong because Star Wars is Star Wars. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy the movie, but I enjoyed
experience.
like having the reason to rewatch it.
Yeah. Let's get into
with
the
that
questions.
being said, yeah. What was your favorite line or moment?
My favorite line and moment, not because it's good, is when Anakin is standing on that pier with Padme. They're on Naboo. They're in hiding. And they're just having this wonderful little scene of nothing over the lake.
Yeah.
And he just starts talking about sand, how it's coarse, gets everywhere, and it's just terrible. And it's just what a wonderful symbolism George Lucas came up with. What about you?
It's like it was almost my favorite line or moment, but it was I will never forgive George Lucas for this. This is a personal thing. I will never forgive him. He falls off that little elephant-looking thing on that planet.
Oh, the weird pig monster?
The little pig monster, elephant, whatever he's riding in. Then he falls off, and he's like, she thinks he's hurt, and she runs up. And this is where it could have been so great, and it was almost. And she goes, Annie, are you all right? And I'm so mad that she didn't say the word okay, because then she'd be saying, Annie, are you okay?
God
Are
damn
you okay?
it, motherfucker.
Are you okay, Annie? And
I thought you were going to say how stupid the tumble of them tumbling down the hill is.
that was dumb. But she almost said it.
Annie, are you okay?
She said, Annie, are you all right? And I was like, damn you, Lucas.
He was so close.
Yeah. And another time she says, I think she says, what's wrong, Annie, or something like that. And I was like, that's 2. You're strike 2. 3, you're out. 3, I'm stopping this movie.
I don't like calling him Annie either.
Yeah, it's like...
It's not an abbreviation we need.
No, he should be like, I'm a man now. Thanks for that.
No, I don't care about the gender role shit.
No, it's
just
not
like
a gender role
weird
shit. It just makes him look young.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make him like a
Why does
Jedi
he allow
Lord.
her to do that?
I don't know, because he loves
Maybe
her.
he likes it, yeah.
And you know what? With Natalie Portman saying that, she could call me whatever she wants. It's all right. So, Danny, are you okay?
I fucking hate you.
All right. Well,
What did you think of the score?
I mean, John Williams wrote this score, as he did with all of those.
I mean, like, he does all the Star Wars.
Yeah, he does all the Star Wars. It's the same score, essentially, with a few modifications, but the
Yeah,
same
it's-
motifs.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, it's
Yeah.
just another fucking... You could argue that in Phantom Menace, he wrote a couple new things with, like,
Yeah.
the lightsaber battles, but it's kind of just Star Wars. You've heard this fucking score before.
I
You've
don't
heard
want
all of it.
I don't really want to just throw it aside. I do want to say it is the greatest score of all time, and it should be repeated over and over and over. It's the greatest score of all time.
It's beautiful music.
I personally love Jurassic Park a little more, but this is the greatest score of all. When that title is scrolling and they're explaining the movie at the top, dun, 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 it's the best thing that's ever been written for movies. I don't even know that there will ever be anything better. Plus, you've got the Darth Vader's like motif.
There's wonderful motifs for every
and then
character.
it's just like there's just so much good shit in there.
But it was all written 30 years ago. That's the thing, is like, it doesn't feel like there's anything rewritten for these characters. You know,
No.
Darth Vader has his motif.
Yeah.
The rebels have a theme. Everyone has a theme or a feel. And in this, these aren't rebels fighting against an empire. These are politicians fighting against rebels.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Rebel terrorists, whatever you want to call them. But
Yeah.
because of that, they kind of are just given the same motifs that are in the other movies. It's beautiful music. None of it's written for these characters.
No, I mean, except for Anakin. In that later, and when he has those moments of like that, you can almost see that dark side, whether I agree with him or not. They do play his thing.
Yeah, they give that little bum 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 bum
Yeah.
bum.
Yeah, and so that I think that's cool. I also kind of loved the moment when they kissed that first time, Amidala and Anakin. And then
the music
like
cuts
the
out
music
really
swells
weird.
and then it cuts out right as she stops him. And I was like, that's kind of I noticed it.
Yeah.
And it was cool. It was cool in the way that it worked.
It
was
feels
little-
like a record scratch to me.
but it also continued.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, we have this gloriousness and you're not going to get it. Ba-na-na-na-na, ba-na-na, you know? So John Williams is a genius. He can do no wrong. He's Jesus with a baton. So
Hitting that Jesus theme.
okay.
Who does the Oscar go to?
I know who it doesn't go to, and that's Anakin. He gets the
Terribly
Razzie.
miscast. I feel like it's not
Yeah,
his
it's
fault.
really-
It's a
It's
lot
a
of
bad.
things
It's poorly
working
written
against each
for
other.
him, and yeah.
Yeah.
So on a positive note, I don't know. I guess I'm just gonna do it. I want to do it. I'm going to give it to my girl, Natalie Portman, mostly because I just want to send her something in the mail, and I want her to know that I'm alive, and I exist, and I love her. But also because I think she was pretty good in that movie.
So you just kind of want her address? Is that what?
No.
I don't like. What?
I don't want her address.
Well, how are you sending it to her?
We always send our Oscars to people.
How did you get the address?
The internet. I'm not going to go visit it. I'm not going to drive to... Who do you want to give the Oscar to?
It's slim pickings, man, but I think I'm going to give it to Ewan McGregor. Just
Okay.
because, like even though his character's not well written, even though he's not given anything,
Yeah.
I don't know why. Consistently, I like him in all three of these movies. There's something that he's bringing every film, every time.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish I got to see that energy, that spark behind a character with a good script.
Yeah.
Every time he does make a choice, as ridiculous as it is, I fucking believe him. And he's so charming. Like, he's
is.
everything
He's
this
wonderful.
film is missing. And I wish that he wasn't separated from our main story the whole movie. I wish he was with our main story.
Yeah.
So we could have that dynamic of sad, brooding, happy, scared, all of it.
Yeah. A little bit buddy cop.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to see.
That's what this movie was supposed to
Yeah.
be, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
Somewhere in between episode 1 and episode 2 was the movie cop movie, and I want to see that.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Can we do episode 1.5, please?
Yeah.
Disney, get on it.
Get on
Because you
it.
know what? Ewan McGregor deserves a second chance. I think it's consistently the only character people really like.
I don't know. This almost seems pointless, but
I don't think it does.
does it have The Rock in it?
It doesn't. It has a lot of rocks in it. I wish that it had the only one I cared about in it. Can you imagine if, just like Thor Ragnarok style, instead of all those monsters at the end, it's fucking Obi-Wan, Padme, Anakin, all tied up, and just the door opens,
And it's The Rock?
and it's The Rock, and he
Yeah.
just goes, "Can you smell?"
Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, shit!
Yeah.
Fuck, man. This movie's ahead of its time.
It's ahead of its
the way
time.
we wrote it
Yeah.
just now.
Boom. Go see that one.
Okay, here's an important one.
Yeah.
Which character would survive the longest in a zombie apocalypse? I feel like everyone's going to be a little fine, but let's see who you take.
Well, I mean, I kind of think it's an obvious answer for this one. It's Yoda.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, he's been alive.
because he can
for long.
fucking fly now, apparently.
He's Yoda.
Just hate.
But
He's a video game character in this movie.
yeah, a little bit. A little bit.
That's why he'll be so good, though. Like, he'll just, jump from building to building, slicing zombie heads.
Or he'll just move them with his fingers. Just get out of my way. Parting the Red Seas of zombies. You agree? You're on the same page?
I agree.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry. You took
Yeah.
my pick.
So what was the best my early 2000s moment?
It's kind of tough with this film just because it is so genred. You can definitely speak to the cinematography, to some of the directing, to some of the style of it. Feels a little dated, but I feel like that's boring. But
Yeah.
I think something we touched on last episode in the Harry Potter film with the my early 2000s moment is the hair.
The hair, I
The
noticed
hair
that
is
too.
so weird.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in this film too.
Yeah. Boba Fett was the one that really sold it for me as very early 2000s hair.
Yeah. There's
As a
something
kid.
about just that weird, almost 70s hair that everyone kind of has at that time.
Yeah.
Genred film. It doesn't really stick out as a my early 2000s movie, but
The thing that
it
kind
just does
of
have. Okay, yeah.
confused me or made me really think it was early 2000s was when he was searching for that planet that was missing
Yeah.
at that version of a Star Wars library. He was basically sitting at a computer, but it wasn't.
You're right.
It was that was you wouldn't see that today. You wouldn't see that.
It was like a
before
very
that.
terminal computer.
That was very much of that
and
time.
he probably should have done a Minority Report sort of touchy hand
Yeah.
hey, because
So
it's
it's
the
like
future.
it literally would look like a library. There was a bunch of computers, line by line, or not computers, but whatever they were, line by line by line. And he was sitting at it, typing or searching something, like he went to a library to research something. That, to me, felt very early 2000s. There's a very minimal time where that's an actual thing in real life, right? Because computers they existed long before, the 2000s, but
that style,
really
that
the
size,
personal
that
computer
that way
is the 90s and 2000s. And then by the end of that first decade of the 2000s, everyone has their computer in their pocket. So it's really a short amount of time.
Yeah, you kind of just blew my mind a little bit. You look at the original trilogy, everything is in such otherly worlds, you can't fathom or relate to it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's moments where they're in a straight up fucking library searching on the computer like you could do in your hometown.
Right.
There's these visuals
like, bitch,
and things
you're a
that,
Jedi.
Yeah.
What is wrong with you?
But now that I think about it though, there's some weird 2001 undertones in this. There's some weird 9/11 undertones in this for sure.
Totally.
The assassination attempt, the war on. Yeah, it's weird.
The bombs on the plane at the beginning or the ship on the beginning.
Even with the politics, you can kind of see it's this weird should we fight, should we not? Are we going to open up Pandora's box by doing that? That's almost kind of like what they're doing with the clones in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, I don't think George Lucas came up with anything in this movie. I think he just sort of watched the news and went to the library a few times.
Maybe, yeah.
Found a computer, typed on it. That's how he came up with the script.
There you go. You all could be George Lucas. So with that being said, how many Spaten Optimators, that's our beer, would you give this movie out of a 6-pack?
I'm going to give it a 2 out of 6.
2 out of 6?
Yeah, just because.
It's your lowest rating yet.
I could see myself watching Phantom Menace for fun when I'm in my 40s and being that was fun when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
How many beers are you going to give it?
I am sorry, George Lucas, but I'm going to keep all these beers to myself.
Oh, shit.
Because they're delicious.
Beers.
I don't want to give it any beers.
Holy fuck.
I really didn't like it. And that has nothing to do with anything. I just didn't like it. It's just not fun. There were so many missed opportunities for comedy. There was so much character misdevelopment in this movie.
There's not a protagonist.
There was good almost jokes. There's no protagonist. The score, John Williams, I'll let you sip my beer because you're brilliant.
So he can have a few sips.
You could have some sips of my beer. Give him a shot of whiskey.
Poor
I don't
John.
know. And Natalie Portman, anytime you want, they're all yours. If you want all 6 of them, you've got all 6 of them. That's it. That's what I've got. I'm sorry. And
I'm just excited for the new one, man. I'm so
excited
fucking
too.
pumped for
it's
The Last Jedi.
couple days. Yeah, by the time this comes out.
Yeah, 10 days from when we're recording
Yeah,
this.
but the time it comes out, it'll only be 3.
Oh my gosh.
If you're listening to this on Tuesday, the 12th, it's almost here.
I'm jealous of you because you already have your tickets and I don't. I'm just excited that we have new Star Wars, new people. There's new life in this franchise in a way that feels good for the fans and feels good for characters. It feels good for everybody.
Yep.
And there's something about the end of the year that always needs a fun film, something to look forward to at the end of the year. And if it's Star Wars for the next 20 years of my life, that's
Great.
fine with me.
Yeah, me too. I don't think we're going to have to sit through stuff like this again. Not that it was an easy challenge and that it was hard for him to prequelize something he had already made and was the biggest hit of all time.
Right.
It was hard. That was a lot of pressure and
Sure.
And not all of it's bad. It's just and it does tell the story that it kind of needs to. Kind of. It just could have been done more effectively.
Absolutely.
So, and I think that at the end of the day that's just the truth. And that's my early 2000s for this week.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was.
I'm sorry if I shouted at you.
That's okay. It happens daily around here. Anyway, I'm Daniel Wargo.
And I'm Will.
And if you'd like to talk to us about this episode, if you'd like to yell at us because you disagree or you agree with us, whatever, you just want to say hey.
I'd love to get a conversation going about this film.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally. You can hit us up on at SplashZoneMedia on Twitter, Instagram. And if you do listen to this on a podcast app, please feel free to give us a review or a rating. That we'd really appreciate that. And subscribe. Because next time we're going to do a Christmas movie, and you're going to want to hear that. Well, have a great week. Stay safe. Keep warm in this 60-degree weather, people. Don't get sick.
Daniel, what's your midichlorian count? Did you get your blood tested today at the Jedi Academy?
My Jedi Academy.
Oh, fuck. What is
Trying to do Yoda. The count is much, am I?
That's your Yoda?
It's pretty good, right?
No, it sounds like Elmo. Why is he so high-pitched?
Elmo!